Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys making some time out of your day to spend with me and watch the video. Always very thankful for that. And guys, today we are going to give you guys a complete explanation on how to locate bass on a new body of water. If you've never fished a place before, doesn't matter how big it is, I'm sort of going to give you guys a system that will make it less intimidating, because I think anybody, even professional anglers, if you've never been to a body of water before, there's a level of intimidation that goes with that. But I think if you guys follow some of the suggestions I have here, you'll be able to locate those bass really quickly, and it won't be quite so overwhelming to you. Also, before we get started, guys, just one quick reminder, Tackle Warehouse has got some really good sales on their spring fishing tackle right now. If you're interested in checking it out, I'll put my Tackle Warehouse link in the description here. You guys can check all that out. And also, I'll be talking about a bunch of really good lures to locate fish on a new lake. So I'll put all those links in the description on that in the video today too. So much appreciated if you guys could check that out. Okay guys, how do you go about locating fish on a place you've never known before? It starts before you get to the lake. I think one of the first, I'm sort of going to run through the process I go through as a tournament angler if I've never been to a lake. First thing I do is I'm going to try to do as much research as I can on the body of water before I get there. And that gives me a huge indication on the best areas of the lake and the type of techniques I'm going to use based upon what type of body of water it is. So the best thing you can do, guys, there's two different things, is go on Google Earth and check out the lake on Google Earth, because that gives you a good indication on what type of structures in the lake, different type of water clarities you can see from Google Earth. If there's boat docks there, you can see laydowns, rocky banks. It really gives you a good mental picture of what the lake looks like. Also, on the Navionics, the Navionics web app, if you go onto that gives you a good idea of the contours. It's a contour type of online map, and you can check that out. That dang helicopter, every time I do a video, it has to fly over the house here. It's like right over the house. Sorry about that, guys. So that's the first two things I do is with the map study there. Also, in correlation with that, you can just Google where you're going. It's like there are so many YouTube videos out there. There's not hardly a body of water that's over 500 acres in this lake that if you don't Google or don't YouTube it, you can at least see some type of a video on what the lake looks like. And that right off the bat gives you a good idea of mentally sort of what you're going to be coming up against once you get to the lake. And that we didn't used to have that before, guys. Back in the day, the only thing that we had was a paper map, and then some guys rented a little bitty crop duster plane and they flew the lake and practiced. That's the way people found out about it. So it's a lot easier now to get that information. So the next thing that you have to determine is it's going to be where you want to start fishing at is going to be based upon the season that you're there. Obviously, we're talking about traditional real bass fishing. I'm not talking about spotlighting for bass, because all you do in that is get out in the middle of open water and turn your live scope on and just sit down there with your head glued to a video screen. So that's not real fishing. As far as real fishing, you have to understand the seasonal movements of the patterns of the bass to determine where you want to first look at to try to find those bass on a new lake. So I'm going to sort of briefly go through the process that I go through on that. Now, this is going to be for a typical man-made impoundment. If you guys are fishing natural bodies of water like tidal rivers or places in Florida, places up north, this is not going to apply that much, but most people fish man-made impoundments for most of their fishing. So the first thing you do, if you're going to a body, let's go through winter, spring, summer, fall. If you go to a new body of water, as far as where I would suggest as far as beginning your search for. Now, if you're going to be there in the wintertime, excuse me, between like, these dang allergies here, man. We got so much pollen out here right now that everything's covered with pollen. It's sneezing and coughing. But if you're going to go fishing on a new body of water during the wintertime, like December through, first part of March, late part of February, water clarity is going to be your main concern, and you want to try to find the cleanest water in the lake. Now, for the most part, most lakes are traditionally, you've got the cleanest water on the lower end, and then it slowly gets a little bit dirtier as you go up. So the part of the lake that you fish is going to be determined by the water clarity in different parts of the lake, because say, for example, here on Table Rock Lake in Missouri, we've got clear water on the lower end of the lake, and we've also got clear water on the mid part of the lake. So the lake opens up and it fishes a lot bigger. But regardless, one of the things that will really help your search a lot is to try to start in what you feel is the cleanest water on the lake in the cold water. Now you can do this by locating these areas on Google Earth. You can see the water clarity on Google Earth. So get on Google Earth and try to find the cleanest water in the lake and isolate that portion of the lake for your search to begin with. So let's say, for example, if you get on Google Earth and you find that most of the clean water is between like the dam and maybe 5 miles up the lake or so, just make that your lake when you go there. So immediately that cuts the lake down. Let's say if you're on a 30,000 acre lake, that cuts the lake down to maybe 5,000 or 6,000 acres. So it's easier to manage within that. The next thing you have to do, what I do on a strange body of water if I'm fishing in the wintertime, is I try to focus on the main lake areas. Most of the time in the wintertime, you're going to find, probably a bigger group of fish on the main lake than you do in the creek and the coves. So I'm going to begin my search on the main lake, and also with that, I'm going to be looking for more vertical type structures, sharper drop-offs, steeper banks. Bass like to hold, and bass like to relate to more vertical structures in the cold water. So therefore, the first place I'm going to look for is I'm going to launch my boat on the lower end of the lake, and I'm going to look over there. I'm going to try to fish some bluff banks. I'm going to try to fish some steep points, some steep banks that have a quick drop off into deeper water. That's going to be where I begin my search at, with the traditional wintertime fishing techniques like small swim baits, jerk baits, maybe Alabama rig, that type of situation. And normally I'm going to be able to find some fish under that situation. Now, the next place, say you're going to a strange body of water in the springtime of the year. And we're talking about springtime, we're talking about, March to first part of May, something like that. When you're looking for bass in the springtime of the year, this is one of the easier time of year to catch fish around most lakes. And what I like to do in the springtime is I'm not necessarily concerned with finding the cleanest water of the lake, but I don't want dirty water. So I'm looking to find a part of the lake that has clean to maybe water that has just a slight stain in it. And on top of that, I'm looking to concentrate my efforts in the major creek arms. So one of the first things I do going to a new lake in the springtime of the year, I'll look at the map and I'll try to find that part of the lake where there's a little bit of a color change. And normally this is like on the mid part of the lake. So I'll get in the mid part of the lake and I'll pick out 2 or 3 major creek arms, and I go into those areas, and based upon the part of spring it is, whether it be the pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn, I usually begin going into those major creek arms and looking for the steeper channel banks that are closer to the spawning areas. Like, say, for example, a little bluff bank or a channel bank that's leading into a flat cove where the fish could spawn at. And I'll start out, fishing those steeper banks in those creeks. Maybe like with a crawdad color crankbait, or fishing a jig, a finesse jig slow, something like that, maybe even a jerk bait. As spring progresses and that water temperature gets closer to 60, I'm staying in those same creeks, but I'm going back into the coves. I'm going to be concentrating on the flat coves, going about halfway to 2/3 of the way back, and fishing stuff like shaky heads, wacky rigs. That's where I'm going to be looking for those fish. And in late spring, as very similar to like the early spring, I'm going to stay in those creek arms, and I'm going to look for those fish to be like on secondary points and basically moving their way out a little bit further into the creek. But the main thing, as far as locating bass on a new lake in the springtime of the year, concentrate on your larger creeks in the mid part of the lake. Now, as the summertime rolls around, like June, July, August, can be some of the tougher fishing in the lake, and a lot of it depends on the structure that you have as far as what you're going to concentrate in. Some lakes are full of docks, some lakes have laydowns, some lakes have just rock in it. But the thing that I look for in the summertime of the year, I'm looking for the dirtiest water in the lake. Now, if you guys like to fish deep brush piles or something like that, this may not be your deal, but the way that I locate fish is if I'm going in June, July, or August, again, I get on Google Earth, I try to determine what is the dirtiest water on the lake. Normally it's on the upper end of the lake, river arms, back of creeks, that type of stuff. And I run to that dirty water and I start fishing whatever shallow cover is available. If there's laydowns, I'm fishing a square bill crankbait or spinnerbait around laydowns. If there's docks, I'm flipping some shallow off-colored docks. If there's off-colored rock, I'm throwing a square bill or a crankbait or spinnerbait or chatterbait on the rock, whatever cover is available, grass, anything like that. But the quickest way to find bass on a new lake in the summertime without having to fish deep, hard structures like a lot of people do is looking for that off-colored water. It's going to be really good for that. Now, the fall time of the year, there's a lot of different stuff going on in the fall time. The fall time of the year is when the lake opens up all over the place, and it's harder to isolate it, because in the fall time, like September through November, you can catch fish in the clear water on the lower end, you can catch them on the mid part of the lake, and you can catch them in the upper river part. The whole lake's usually pretty good. So depending upon the type of lake that I'm fishing and the cover that's available, that will determine where I'm going to fish at. Normally, the way that I do it is in early fall, like in September, when it's still pretty hot, I'm still in those same type of summer areas. I'm looking for that off-colored water in the upper reaches of the lake. Once that water temperature starts dropping down a little bit, like into the 60s and 70s, that's when I start looking on a new lake towards the mid part of the lake. And I'll move back down in the mid part of the lake, even down into the lower part of the lake, and I start fishing, again, the same shallow water techniques, but I'm changing my techniques to largely top water. One of the first things I do on a new lake, if I'm there in October and November, I'm fishing the mid to the lower end of the lake, throwing a buzzbait, a walking topwater, a popper, anything like that. That's going to be my primary thing. Topwater is outstanding that time of year. If you've got off-colored water in the lake that you're fishing, a small shallow running crankbait is going to be really good, just fishing it around rocky banks. Docks are really good that time of year. But the main thing that I'm looking for is the time of fall based upon the water clarity. In general, like I said, there's always exceptions to the rule. Is in September, I'm in dirty water. In October, I'm looking for a little bit cleaner water where I begin my search at. And in November, late fall, I'm looking for the little bit cleaner water areas. So I'm gradually moving from the upper end of the lake to the lower end of the lake from September, November, and October as it progresses. So anyway, guys, that's just sort of a real rough foundation about how to begin your search. What happens is what you think is going to happen and how you expect that you're going to catch fish. It never turns out that way, but you have to begin somewhere. You have to begin your search somewhere until you figure out what the fish are doing. So the best way to do that quickly is get onto an area, like if you're fishing a steep bank or a point or whatever, give that type of structure a try for 30, 45 minutes. And if that doesn't work, change structures. If you're fishing a steep bank, move to a flatter bank. If you're fishing wood, go to rock. Just mix it up a little bit until you start getting a few bites. Mix up the areas, mix up your presentation, and pay attention to that first bite. The first bite of the day, especially if it's a quality fish, is a really big indicator on pointing you in the right direction to make your next move there. So anyway, hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.